My girlfriend admitted cheating and said you're weak. My friends took her side. I smiled, left, and woke up to 40 panicked calls. Looking back, I never thought a glowing phone screen could shatter my whole world. But there it was, right next to Emily's half-empty coffee mug. A text from her boss, Brad. "Miss you already. Last night was..." My stomach dropped like I'd swallowed a brick. See, Emily and I had been together since high school. We'd moved into this tiny apartment after college, laughing about how the leaky faucet in the kitchen was rustic charm. But lately, things felt off. She'd come home late, her perfume smelling like some fancy cologne I didn't own. When I'd ask, she'd roll her eyes. "Relax, Jake, it's just work." I stared at that text, my hands shaking. Part of me wanted to chuck her phone out the window. Instead, I took a deep breath and waited. She walked in an hour later, heels clicking like always. "Hey," she said, not even looking up from her purse. "Who's Brad?" I blurted. Her head snapped up. For a second, she looked scared. Then her face hardened. "You went through my phone?" "It lit up while you were gone." My voice sounded weird, like someone else was talking. "What happened last night?" She crossed her arms. "You really want to know? Fine. Brad's everything you're not. Ambitious, successful. He actually takes what he wants." Her words were ice. "We're done, Jake. You've been holding me back for years." It felt like she'd slapped me. All I could whisper was, "Why? Why?" She laughed, but it wasn't her laugh. Not the one I knew. "Look at us. You're still working that same lame retail job while I'm moving up. Brad's going to make me a partner. What do you have?" I wanted to scream, to throw things. But then my phone buzzed. A group text from our friends, Chris and Lisa. "Dude, Emily told us everything. Let her go. It's better this way." My chest tightened. They knew? Chris had been my college roommate. Lisa used to call me her favorite third wheel. Now they were acting like I was the problem. Emily smirked. "See? Even they get it." Something inside me snapped. Not in a loud way, more like a quiet click. I looked around our apartment. The thrift store couch we'd saved up for, the photos of us hiking Mount Willow last summer, all suddenly felt fake, like props in a play I didn't realize I was in. "You're right," I said, surprising myself. "I have been holding back, just not the way you think." Her smirk faded. "What's that supposed to mean?" I didn't answer, just grabbed my keys and the old duffel bag from our camping trips. As I walked out, I heard her yell, "Where are you going? You can't just..." Click. The door shut behind me. In my car, I sat for a minute, gripping the steering wheel. My eyes burned, but I also felt lighter, like I'd been carrying a backpack full of rocks, and finally dropped it. I turned off my phone, rolled down the windows, and drove. No destination, just away. Funny how your heart works. Part of me was furious. At Emily, at Brad, at Chris and Lisa for picking sides. But another part? It kept whispering, "You're free now." I didn't know what came next, but for the first time in years, I wasn't scared to find out. 2 days after driving away from everything I knew, I sat in a dim motel room staring at my silent phone. The walls smelled like old cigarettes, and Pete, the motel owner with a voice like gravel, had left a cold sandwich outside my door. I didn't know why he cared, but I was too numb to ask questions. When I finally turned on my phone, it buzzed like a trapped wasp. Notifications flooded in. Instagram tags, angry texts, missed calls. My heart raced as I opened the first post. There was Emily, teary-eyed in our old apartment, her caption screaming, "Finally free from the lies." Comments called me a monster. Jake controlled her money. He made her feel small. Even our friends Chris and Lisa chimed in, saying they'd seen the signs for years. I felt sick. The photo of Emily's bruised wrist made me grip the phone harder. That bruise was from when she'd tripped carrying groceries, but now it was proof I'd hurt her. My throat tightened. How could people believe this? Then I saw the email from work, a vague message from HR about maintaining a respectful workplace. Gemma, the only coworker who'd ever lent me a charger, texted, "They're talking about you in meetings. Be careful." I wanted to scream, to drive back and shake Emily until she admitted the truth. But instead, I shoved the phone under the motel pillow and stared at the water-stained ceiling. That's when someone knocked. Juliana, Emily's friend from yoga class, stood there looking over her shoulder. She didn't say hello, just handed me a napkin with an email address. "Brad's wife," she whispered. "She knows everything." Then she was gone, leaving me holding a crumpled clue. That night I learned two things. Brad had a wealthy wife named Clara Carter, who hated him. Emily wasn't his first project. Juliana's texts trickled in while I ate Pete's terrible grilled cheese. Last year, a guy named Mark had dated Brad secretly. When Mark tried to quit, Brad and Emily spread rumors he'd stolen company files. Mark lost his job, his friends, even his dog. "He moved to Alaska," Juliana wrote. "No one believed him." My hands shook. This wasn't just about me. Emily and Brad were a team, erasing people who didn't play along. I thought about how Emily always needed to win. Arguments, promotions, even board games. How she'd laugh when I let her have the last slice of pizza. "You're too soft, Jake," she'd say. Now I wondered if soft just meant human. The next morning, Emily posted a video outside our favorite coffee shop, sniffling about reclaiming spaces he poisoned. Strangers sent her money. Chris commented, "We've got your back." I threw my phone so hard it cracked against the wall. Pete found me pacing the parking lot. "Either fix that dent in my truck," he said, nodding at his rusty pickup, "or stop acting like a kicked puppy." So I fixed the dent. And while I worked, I realized something. Emily needed everyone to watch her performance. But what if I stopped being her audience? I created a new social media account, posted photos of the motel's moldy shower, the peeling wallpaper. "My luxury apartment," I wrote. Added the grocery receipt showing Emily bought the wine that made her trip. Tagged Mia, my cousin who'd once seen Emily yell at a waiter for no reason. The comments exploded. Mia shared stories I'd forgotten, like how I'd worked overtime to pay Emily's vet bills when her cat got sick. A guy named Tyler messaged, "Brad did this to my sister, you're not alone." Emily called 12 times. I let it ring. But when she texted, "You'll regret this," I finally replied, "I already do. I believed you." That night, Clara Carter emailed, "Meet me tomorrow. Bring proof." As I fell asleep to the motel's flickering neon sign, I didn't feel brave, just awake. Like I'd been sleepwalking through my own life, and Emily's lies were the alarm clock. The storm wasn't over. But for the first time, I had an umbrella. Meeting Clara Carter felt like stepping into a spy movie. Her office was all glass and cold white chairs, with a view of the city that made me feel like a speck of dust. She didn't smile when I walked in, just pointed to a folder thicker than my motel pillow. "Brad's been cheating on me for years," she said, tapping the folder. But not with Emily. Inside were photos of Brad with other women, expense reports with fake charges, even emails where he'd called Emily a useful puppet. My hands trembled. This wasn't just about love, it was a game. And I'd been a pawn. Clara's plan was simple: crash Brad's big work gala next week. "We'll show everyone who he really is," she said, sliding a flash drive across the desk, "including the police." Walking back to Pete's motel, I felt like I'd swallowed lightning. Part of me wanted to throw up, part of me wanted to cheer, but mostly I kept thinking, Emily knew. She'd seen those photos of Brad with others, heard him lie, and still chose him. Was I ever real to her? That night, Emily posted a video claiming I'd threatened her at the coffee shop. Comments compared me to a horror movie villain, but now, instead of panic, I felt calm. Clara had given me armor made of receipts and security footage. I spent days sorting evidence with Gemma's help. We found Brad's fake charity donations, Emily's lies about Mark's theft, even a recording of Brad telling a client, "Loyalty's for losers." Each discovery felt like peeling back a rotten layer, disgusting, but necessary. Pete noticed the change. "You're smiling," he grunted one morning, handing me a wrench to fix a leaky sink. "Not smiling," I said, "scheming." The gala loomed. Clara bought me a suit that fit weirdly, like someone else's skin. "Don't speak," she warned. "Let the proof talk." But Emily wasn't idle. The day before the gala, our old landlord called, furious. Emily says you threatened her. The cops are coming. I almost laughed. Check your security cameras from Tuesday, I said. I was here fixing your dishwasher, remember? Ah, silence. Then, oh. The morning of the gala, I found a note under my motel door. Stop now or regret it. Emily's handwriting. For a second, I wavered. Then I texted Clara. I'm in. Walking into that glittering hotel ballroom, I expected to feel small. Instead, I felt invisible. Just another face in the crowd as Brad bragged on stage about company values. Clara nodded at me from the shadows. When the screen lit up with Brad's texts to 6 different women, the room froze. Then came the expense reports, the voice recordings, the video of Emily laughing about playing damsel in distress. Chaos erupted. Brad's face turned purple. Emily screamed, "It's fake!" But no one listened. I didn't stay to watch. Outside, the night air tasted clean. My phone buzzed. Clara. Check your bank account. She'd sent $5,000. For the suit, she wrote, and the silence. Back at the motel, Pete was waiting with 2 sodas. Heard it went viral, he said. I nodded, too tired to explain. Upstairs, I found Emily's final text. You ruined everything, I typed. You did that yourself. Then blocked her number. Lying in the dark, I realized something. Revenge wasn't sweet. It was bitter, like medicine. But maybe that's how healing starts. Not with a bang, but with the quiet click of a locked door. The days after the gala felt like waking up from a loud dream. Videos of Brad's meltdown played everywhere, on the news, in coffee shops, even on Pete's tiny motel TV. I'd scroll through comments like, "Justice for Jake," and "Karma's a beast." But it didn't feel real, like watching someone else's life. Clara texted updates. Brad had been fired, Emily's apartment was empty, the police wanted to talk about fraud. People from work started messaging apologies, saying they'd never believed her. I deleted them. It was easy to forgive strangers, but the silence from Chris and Lisa cut deeper. They'd chosen sides knowing the truth. Then Mark came back. A news article popped up one morning. Former employee exposes toxic culture. There was Mark, thinner and fiercer, holding receipts showing Brad had framed him. His interview ended with, "Thanks to Jake for breaking the cycle." I stared at those words until they blurred. For the first time, I cried. Not from sadness, but relief. Someone finally saw me. Emily wasn't done. She showed up at the motel one night, mascara streaked, demanding I fix this. Pete stood guard with a broom, but I stepped outside. The girl who'd once laughed at my bad jokes now looked hollow, like a cardboard cutout of herself. "You ruined us," she spat. I almost felt sorry for her, almost. "You did that," I said quietly. "I just stopped lying." She threw an envelope at me. Photos of us happy, letters I'd written. "I'll tell everyone you're still obsessed." I handed it back. "Then I'll show them how you kept these, just in case." Her face crumpled. She left without a word, the envelope fluttering into a puddle. The next day, HR called. They offered my job back with a promotion. "Damage control," Gemma snorted when I told her. But I declined. The old Jake would have crawled back, grateful. The new Jake applied somewhere quieter, a bookstore downtown. Clara invited me to lunch, her sleek car idling outside the motel. "You could sue," she said, sipping black coffee. "Win enough to buy 10 bookstores." I shook my head. Money felt like another trap. "I just want to be boring again." She smiled, a real one. Boring's underrated. By week's end, Emily's social media vanished. Brad's name trended with words like lawsuit and divorce. Chris left a voicemail. "We messed up, can we talk?" I saved it, but didn't reply. Some bridges stay burned. Pete knocked on my door that night, holding 2 root beers. "Moving out?" he asked, eyeing my half-packed duffel. "Found a place, no mold." He nodded, setting a key on my dresser. "For emergencies, don't abuse it." The bookstore hired me on the spot. My first task? Sorting mystery novels. Ironic, but peaceful. Between the dusty shelves, I found something I'd lost. The quiet joy of small things. Sometimes at night, I replay the gala. The gasps, the screens flashing Brad's lies, Emily's scream. But it's fading, like an old song you stop humming. The world moved on. So did I. Revenge didn't fix everything. But it carved space for something better. The quiet certainty that I'd rather be kind than right, and brave enough to walk away from both. The world didn't just watch Emily and Brad fall, it pushed. News outlets chewed through their lies like hungry wolves. Brad's divorce left him broke, his fancy suits replaced by thrift store flannels. Emily's parents issued a stiff statement. We support our daughter's journey to accountability. Even her coffee shop Survivor posts vanished, replaced by ads for discount skincare. I thought I'd feel triumphant. Instead, I felt tired. Clara's lawyers swarmed like bees, unearthing more of Brad's scams, fake charities, stolen bonuses, even a secret apartment he'd rented under Mark's name. Mark himself became a quiet hero, giving interviews in his Alaska cabin, his dog snoozing by the fire. Jake's proof helped me breathe again, he said. Strangers messaged me, sharing stories of bosses and exes who'd gaslit them too. I saved everyone in a folder labeled Why. Then Emily showed up at the bookstore. I was shelving mysteries when I smelled her perfume, sharp and floral, wrong for the dusty aisles. She looked smaller, her confidence cracked. You think you've won? She hissed, shoving a crumpled envelope at me. Inside were old love notes I'd written, photos of us laughing. I'll tell everyone you're still obsessed, she whispered. For a second, fear prickled my neck. Then I noticed the dates on the photos, all from before her affair. She'd kept these like trophies. I handed the envelope back. Or I'll show how you saved them, just in case you needed to hurt me again. Her face paled. She left without her phone, buzzing with a text from Brad. They're freezing my accounts. That night, I uploaded everything, the notes, the photos, even Brad's desperate text. Captioned it, Love shouldn't be a weapon. The internet erupted. Former friends flooded my DMs, but I ignored them, all except Chris, who showed up at my apartment with shaky apologies and a six-pack. We were idiots, he said. Yeah, I agreed, handing back the beer. Clara called it poetic justice when Emily's blackmail attempt backfired. She donated Brad's remaining money to a shelter, putting my name on the plaque. I asked her to change it to Mark and others. Some heroes prefer silence. Pete surprised me next, a check for $500 tucked into a motel keychain. For first month's rent, his note said. Don't blow it on comic books. The final blow came quietly. Brad's mugshot popped up online. Tax evasion, harassment, fraud. Emily's face followed weeks later, pale and scowling, after she keyed a reporter's car. Comments called her unhinged and pathetic. I closed the tab. At the bookstore, I found peace in small things. The smell of old paper, regulars who just wanted book recommendations, not drama. One rainy afternoon, a girl my age lingered by the poetry section. We talked about Robert Frost. She didn't know my story. It was nice. Revenge hadn't fixed me, but it had cleared space, like ripping out dead weeds so something new could grow. I kept Pete's keychain on my desk. Not for emergencies, but as a reminder. Survival isn't about winning. It's about choosing what to carry forward, and what to leave in the rear view. Time didn't heal all wounds, but it folded them into my story like bookmarks. I moved into a small apartment above the bookstore, where the smell of paper and coffee soaked into the walls. Some mornings I'd catch myself humming, a habit I'd lost somewhere between Emily's lies and Brad's smirk. Clara sent a postcard from Italy. Sunshine tastes better here, she wrote. I pinned it next to Pete's motel keychain, now rusting on my bulletin board. He'd retired, passing the motel to his niece, but still texted me fishing photos with captions like, still better than your grilled cheese. The girl from the poetry section, Sarah, started joining me on lunch breaks. We didn't talk about the past. Instead, we argued about pizza toppings and swapped dog-eared novels. It was slow, safe, a rhythm without fireworks, and for once, that was enough. Emily became a ghost story. Her parents sold their house and moved south. Brad's mugshot resurfaced once, attached to an article about white-collar crime. I skimmed it while shelving travel guides, feeling nothing but a vague pity, like hearing about a storm that missed your town. One rainy afternoon, a package arrived. A battered envelope marked, "Return to sender." Inside were my old love letters to Emily, now coffee-stained and creased. No note. Just a receipt showing she'd tried mailing them to my old motel address months ago. Pete's niece had forwarded them, scribbling, "Thought you'd want these," on the box. I sat on the floor, letters fanned around me. The Jake who'd written those words felt like a stranger, a boy who believed love was loud and forever. Part of me wanted to burn them. Instead, I tucked them into a donated cookbook and slid it onto the shelf. Let someone else find them. Let those words become fiction. That night, Sarah asked about the motel keychain. "It's from a friend," I said. "He taught me that rust isn't weakness. It's just proof you survived the rain." She smiled, not pushing. We ate takeout as the bookstore's neon sign flickered outside, painting the room in soft pink light. No grand confessions, no promises, just two people letting the quiet be enough. The next morning, I found Clara's donation plaque online, for Mark and others. Comments praised her generosity, unaware my name had ever been there. I liked it better this way. At closing time, I spotted Chris lingering by the mystery section. He didn't apologize again, just bought a thriller and said, "Glad you're good, man." I nodded. Some forgiveness happens wordlessly, in the space between what's broken and what remains. I never got a dramatic win. No sweeping romance or fame. But I woke up each day to a life I'd chosen, one where my hands smelled like books, not bitterness, where trust wasn't a gamble, but a seed planted carefully. The storm had washed me somewhere unexpected, a shore where quiet wasn't loneliness, and peace wasn't boring. It was a choice, a daily practice, like watering a plant or locking up the store. As I flipped the sign to closed that night, rain tapping the windows, I realized the greatest revenge wasn't burning bridges. It was building better ones, brick by brick, in the light of your own quiet truth.
Okay, so I need to know if I'm the asshole here. Like, seriously, I'm sitting here replaying everything in my head and I can't tell if I'm the problem or if my family is just a walking, talking dumpster fire. You decide. So, here's the deal. A few months ago, I had this brilliant idea. You know how families always talk about healing and coming together? Yeah, I fell for that crap. I thought, hey, why not host a holiday dinner? You know, like one of those picture-perfect Hallmark movie moments where everyone laughs, eats too much, and magically forgets years of unresolved drama. Spoiler alert, it did not go like that. Let me give you some context. My family is, well, let's just say we're not the Brady Bunch. We're more like the Real Housewives meets Succession, but with worse fashion choices. There's my mom, who's basically a walking guilt trip. My dad, who's either silently judging everyone or loudly complaining about the Wi-Fi. My older sister, Karen, yes, her name is actually Karen, who's always right about everything. Just ask her. And then there's my younger brother, Tim, who's the golden child, but also low-key the most chaotic person I know. Oh, and let's not forget Aunt Linda, who shows up uninvited to every event and always brings her famous Jell-O salad that no one eats. So, back to my brilliant idea. I thought, what if I host Thanksgiving this year? I mean, I've never hosted before, but how hard could it be? Turkey, stuffing, a few bottles of wine. Boom, instant family bonding. Plus, I figured if I was the one hosting, I could control the chaos. LOL. Big mistake. I started by sending out a group text. Classic move, right? I wrote this super upbeat message like, "Hey fam, let's do Thanksgiving at my place this year. I'll cook. You bring the good vibes." Cute, right? Wrong. The responses started rolling in, and let me tell you, it was like watching a slow-motion train wreck. First, my mom. "Oh, honey, are you sure you can handle cooking for everyone? You know how your sister is about her gluten-free diet?" Then Karen chimed in. "Yeah, and I'm vegan now, so you'll need to make sure there's no animal products in anything. Also, I'm bringing my new boyfriend, so don't embarrass me." Tim, of course, had to add his 2 cents. "Cool, but can we make it earlier? I have a thing later that night." Translation? He probably had a Tinder date. And then Aunt Linda, who wasn't even in the group chat originally, somehow found out and texted me separately. "I'll be there, don't worry, I'll bring my Jell-O salad." At this point, I was already regretting everything, but I thought, no, you've committed to this, you can't back out now. So I spent the next week planning the menu, cleaning my apartment, and mentally preparing myself for the inevitable drama. The day before Thanksgiving, I sent out a reminder text. "Hey everyone, just a heads up, dinner's at 4 p.m. tomorrow. Can't wait to see you all." Cue the chaos. Karen, 4 p.m.? That's so early. Can we push it to 5? Tim, actually, can we do 3? I have plans at 7. My mom, honey, are you sure you're ready for this? Maybe I should come early to help. Translation, she doesn't trust me to do anything right. Aunt Linda, I'll be there at noon to help set up. No, Linda, just no. By this point, I was already questioning my life choices, but I figured, it's just one dinner. How bad could it be? The morning of Thanksgiving, I woke up feeling optimistic. I had my playlist ready, my apron on, and a bottle of wine open by 9 a.m., for cooking purposes, obviously. I was determined to make this the best Thanksgiving ever. And then the doorbell rang. It was Aunt Linda, at 10 a.m., with her Jell-O salad. I thought I'd come early to help, she said, barging in like she owned the place. Thanks, Aunt Linda, I said, trying to sound grateful. But I've got everything under control. Nonsense, she said, already rearranging my kitchen. You young people always need help. By the time the rest of the family arrived, I was already on my second glass of wine and seriously reconsidering my life choices. And that was just the beginning. The actual dinner? Oh, honey, that's where things really went off the rails. Okay, so remember how I told you I decided to host Thanksgiving for my family, and how Aunt Linda showed up at 10 a.m. with her cursed Jell-O salad? Yeah, well, that was just the appetizer of this disaster. The main course? That came when the rest of my family arrived. Buckle up, because this is where things get really juicy. So, there I was, trying to juggle basting the turkey, keeping Aunt Linda from helping too much, and pretending I hadn't already had 2 glasses of wine before noon. I thought, okay, I can handle this. Just keep it together until everyone gets here. But then, the doorbell rang. Of course, it was Karen, my older sister, the self-proclaimed queen of everything. She walked in like she was on a runway holding a bottle of organic, vegan, gluten-free wine that probably cost more than my entire meal. Hey, she said, barely glancing at me. Where's the kitchen? I need to check the labels on everything to make sure it's safe for me and Derek. Who's Derek? I asked, confused. My boyfriend, she said, like I was supposed to know this. He's parking the car. He's very particular about cross-contamination, so I hope you cleaned everything thoroughly. I wanted to say, Karen, I'm not running a Michelin star restaurant here. But instead, I just smiled and said, yeah, sure, everything's fine. Spoiler alert, it was not fine. Next came Tim, my younger brother. He strolled in like he owned the place, carrying a 6-pack of beer and wearing a shirt that said, I'm not arguing, I'm just explaining why I'm right. Classic Tim. Hey sis, he said, cracking open a beer. What's the Wi-Fi password? I need to check the football scores. Tim, it's Thanksgiving, I said. Can we maybe, I don't know, spend time together as a family? He laughed. Yeah, sure, after I check the scores. Then came my parents. My mom walked in first, carrying a giant Tupperware container of mashed potatoes that she insisted on bringing because, and I quote, you never make them right. Hi, honey, she said, giving me a hug that felt more like a guilt trip. The apartment looks cozy. Translation, it's too small, and she hates it. My dad followed behind her, carrying nothing but his usual air of disapproval. Smells like something's burning, he said, sniffing the air. That's just the candles, Dad, I said, trying not to scream. And then there was Derek, Karen's new boyfriend. He walked in like he was auditioning for The Bachelor, all smirks and perfectly tousled hair. Hey, everyone, he said, flashing a smile that made me want to roll my eyes. Karen's told me so much about you all. Oh, really? I said, raising an eyebrow. Like what? Like how you're trying to host Thanksgiving this year, Karen said, giving me a look. It's cute. At this point, my apartment was officially a pressure cooker of passive-aggressive comments and unsolicited advice. Aunt Linda was in the kitchen, fixing the stuffing. Karen and Derek were interrogating me about the ingredients in the gravy. Tim was on the couch yelling at the football game on his phone, and my parents were sitting at the table silently judging everything. I tried to keep it together, I really did. But then, it happened. Karen walked into the kitchen, took one look at the turkey and said, You didn't brine it? Ugh, it's going to be so dry. Karen, I said through gritted teeth. I followed the recipe, it's fine. It's not fine, she said. Derek's a foodie, he's going to hate it. Well, maybe Derek can bring his own turkey next time, I snapped. Cue the gasps. The room went silent. Even Tim looked up from his phone. Karen stared at me like I'd just slapped her. Excuse me, she said. You heard me, I said, crossing my arms. If you're going to criticize everything, maybe you should host next year. And that's when the real drama started. Karen and I almost came to blows over the turkey. Yeah, well, that was just the pregame. The real drama, that happened at the dinner table. And let me tell you, it was like Game of Thrones meets Real Housewives, but with more mashed potatoes. So, there we were, all sitting around the table. The turkey was carved, dry, according to Karen. The stuffing was adjusted. Thanks, Aunt Linda. And the wine was flowing, mostly into Tim. Everything looked picture perfect, but I could feel the tension in the air. It was like sitting on a powder keg, waiting for someone to light the match. And then, it happened. It started innocently enough. My mom made a comment about how nice it was to have everyone together. It's been so long since we've all been in the same room, she said, smiling. Yeah, because no one can stand each other, Tim muttered under his breath. Tim, my mom said, giving him the classic mom glare. What? He said, holding up his hands. I'm just saying we're not exactly the Brady Bunch. Well, maybe if you didn't spend every holiday glued to your phone, we'd feel more like a family, Karen snapped. Oh, here we go, Tim said, rolling his eyes. Miss Perfect has something to say. And just like that, the floodgates opened. At least I try to be present, Karen said, glaring at Tim. Unlike some people who just show up for the free food. Free food? I said, jumping in. Excuse me, I spent all day cooking this meal. Yeah, and it shows, Karen said, giving the turkey a pointed look. Karen, I swear to God, I started, but my dad cut me off. Enough, he said, slamming his hand on the table. Can we just have one meal without all the drama? And then Derek decided to open his mouth. You know, he said in that smug, know-it-all tone of his. In my family, we always go around the table and say what we're thankful for. Maybe we should try that. Dead silence. Oh, I'll go first, Karen said, clearly missing the vibe. I'm thankful for Derek. He's been such a positive influence in my life. Barf, Tim said, under his breath. What was that? Karen said, turning to him. I said barf, Tim repeated, louder this time. You've been dating this guy for what, 2 months? And you're already acting like he's the second coming of Christ. At least I have a boyfriend, Karen shot back. When's the last time you went on a date that didn't involve swiping right? Oh, that's rich, coming from Miss I'm vegan now, Tim said. How long until you dump this guy and move on to your next phase? At this point, Derek looked like he wanted to crawl under the table, but Karen wasn't done. You know what, Tim? She said, standing up. You're just jealous because no one can stand to be around you for more than 5 minutes. Oh, that's cute, Tim said, standing up too. Coming from the person who's been bossing everyone around since we were kids. Guys, stop, I said, trying to intervene. It's Thanksgiving! Yeah, well, maybe Thanksgiving is stupid, Tim yelled. Timothy, my mom said, looking horrified. What? He said. It's true. All we do is sit around pretending to like each other when we all know we'd rather be anywhere else. And then the room exploded. Everyone was yelling, pointing fingers, and bringing up every grievance they'd ever had. My mom was crying. My dad was yelling at everyone to calm down. Aunt Linda was trying to mediate, bless her heart. And I just sat there wondering how it had all gone so wrong. Finally, I'd had enough. Enough! I yelled, standing up. This is my house, and I'm not going to let you all ruin this for me. If you can't be civil, then you can leave. Dead silence. And that's when I realized, maybe I was the asshole. Either way, the damage was done. But here's the kicker. After all that, we still had dessert. And let me tell you, Aunt Linda's Jell-O salad was the least of our problems. The next morning, I woke up with a headache that could only be described as family-induced. My phone was blowing up with texts, and I knew before I even looked that it was going to be bad. First, there was a message from my mom. I can't believe you kicked us out like that, after everything I've done for you. Then from Karen. Thanks for humiliating me in front of Derek. He's probably going to break up with me now. And of course, from Tim. You're dead to me. Aunt Linda, bless her heart, sent me a recipe for stress-relieving tea. But the real drama started when someone, probably Tim, created a group chat titled Thanksgiving Disaster. And let me tell you, it was a war zone. Karen kicked things off. I can't believe how selfish everyone was last night. All I asked was for a little consideration for my dietary needs, and instead, I got attacked. Tim immediately fired back. Oh, please, Karen, you were the one who started it by insulting the turkey. I was just being honest, Karen replied. If no one tells her the truth, how will she ever improve? Improve? I said, finally jumping in. I spent all day cooking for you ingrates, and this is the thanks I get? No one asked you to host, Tim said. If you couldn't handle it, you should have said something. Oh, that's rich coming from you, I shot back. You didn't lift a finger to help. Then my mom chimed in. I think we all need to take responsibility for what happened, but especially you, Sarah. You're the one who lost your temper. Me? I said. What about Karen and Tim? They were the ones fighting like children. I was just trying to keep the peace, Karen said. By insulting my cooking? I replied. By being honest, she said. And then Derek decided to join the chat. Hey everyone, he wrote. I just want to say that I'm really sorry for any part I played in last night's drama. I was just trying to help. Oh, here we go, Tim said. Mr. Perfect has something to say. Tim, leave him alone, Karen said. At least he's trying to be mature about this. Mature? Tim said. He's the one who suggested that stupid "what are you thankful for" thing. I thought it was a nice idea, Derek said. Of course you did, Tim replied. At this point, I was ready to throw my phone out the window, but then Aunt Linda sent a message that stopped everyone in their tracks. I think we're all forgetting the real issue here, she wrote. The Jell-O salad. Dead silence. What about the Jell-O salad? I asked, confused. No one ate it, she said. I spent hours making it and not a single person touched it. I think that's what really caused all the tension. And just like that, the focus shifted. Everyone started arguing about the Jell-O salad, whether it was the root of all evil or just a harmless side dish. Karen blamed Tim for making fun of it. Tim blamed me for not encouraging everyone to try it. My mom blamed my dad for not setting a good example. And my dad, well, he just left the group chat. After days of arguing in the group chat, and yes, the Jell-O salad debate is still ongoing, things finally went quiet. Too quiet. You know that eerie silence right before a tornado hits? That's what it felt like. I thought maybe, just maybe, everyone had moved on. But then, my mom called. Hi, honey, she said, in that tone that immediately made me nervous. We need to talk. About what? I asked, already dreading the answer. About Thanksgiving, she said. Your father and I have been discussing it, and we think it's time for a family meeting. A family meeting? I said. Mom, we're not a corporation. Well, clearly we need to address some issues, she said. So we're all going to meet at our house this weekend, and we expect you to be there. Fast forward to Saturday. I walked into my parents' house feeling like I was about to face a firing squad. Karen was there, looking as judgmental as ever. Tim was slouched on the couch, scrolling through his phone. My dad was in his armchair, pretending to read the newspaper. And Aunt Linda, well, she brought another Jell-O salad. Okay, my mom said, clapping her hands like she was about to lead a corporate retreat. Let's get started. Karen went first, because of course she did. I think the real issue here is communication, she said in her best therapist voice. If we had all been more open about our feelings, maybe things wouldn't have escalated. Oh, please, Tim said, rolling his eyes. I was just being honest, Karen said. You were being rude, I shot back. Enough, my mom said, holding up her hands. We're not here to rehash the same arguments. We're here to find a solution. And then, my dad spoke up. I think the solution is simple, he said. No more hosting holidays at Sarah's house. What? I said, feeling both relieved and insulted. It's too small, he said. And let's face it, you're not exactly a natural host. Gee, thanks, Dad, I said. I'm just being honest, he said, shrugging. But then, Karen dropped the bomb. I think we should start rotating holidays, she said. That way no one person has to bear the burden. Rotating? I said. You mean like you host Christmas this year and I host next year? Exactly, she said, smiling like she'd just solved world peace. And who decides the order? I asked. We'll draw straws, she said. Oh, great, Tim said, because that's not going to cause any drama. In the end, we agreed to rotate holidays. I put agreed in quotes because no one actually agreed. We just got tired of arguing. Karen got Christmas this year, which means I'm off the hook, for now. But here's the thing. As much as I complained about hosting, I can't help but feel a little guilty. Did I overreact? Was I the problem? Or was my family just too much to handle? So, tell me, was I the asshole for losing my cool and kicking everyone out? Or was my family the real issue all along? And more importantly, should I have just eaten the damn Jell-O salad? Thanks for sticking with me through this saga. If you've made it this far, you're a real one. And if you think your family is crazy, well, let's just say I've got stories for days. Like, comment, and subscribe for Reddit drama stories. And watch these ones next.
My parents thought it would be hilarious to play a prank on me at a gas station. They'll be back in a minute, they smirked as the car pulled away. I never returned. 15 years later, they tracked me down. 107 missed calls. That summer I turned 19 was supposed to be like any other, working at my mom's bakery for peanuts, living at home because university wasn't feasible according to Diane, my mother, and being the constant target for my perfect sister Rachel. We weren't broke exactly, but we definitely weren't the kind who went on cruises to the Bahamas. So when Diane announced we were taking a family trip to my cousin's wedding in Montana, I should have suspected something wasn't right. 3 days into that hellish journey, I was already wishing I'd invented some reason to stay behind. My mom and Rachel had been alternating with their preferred game, making Jason's existence miserable. Dad, Victor, would occasionally mutter, "That's enough," in that ineffectual tone of his, but we all understood it was just pretend. Look, I need to clarify about my family. Diane wasn't just your average mom. She was the type who'd rouse you at 5 a.m. to criticize your homework from the night before, who'd donate your belongings if they cluttered her space, who'd been informing me I was useless since I could form memories. Rachel learned fast. Either be mom's duplicate or become like me. Guess which option she selected? That afternoon, we paused at some forgotten gas station in Montana, middle of absolutely nowhere for miles. Just plains, mountains on the horizon, and a depressing little convenience store with a bathroom. I'd been napping in the back of our minivan and wanted to stretch my legs, use the restroom. Mom and Rachel were snickering about something while Dad was checking the map on his phone. I recall precisely what I had on: worn-out Nirvana shirt, jeans with a tear at the knee, and these scuffed Converse I'd owned forever. I didn't bring my phone because it was charging in the car, didn't bring my wallet because why would I? We were in the middle of nowhere, and I was just using the bathroom. 10 minutes, that's how long I spent in that restroom, probably less. When I stepped out, blinking in the Montana sunlight, the parking space was vacant. Our blue minivan had vanished. Initially, I assumed they'd relocated it, playing some idiotic joke. I circled the entire gas station. Nothing. That's the thing about betrayal from your own flesh and blood. It strikes differently than any other kind. I waited an hour, perched on the curb, telling myself they were just trying to frighten me and would return. People arrived and departed, several giving me strange looks. A truck driver asked if I was all right. I lied and said I was waiting for my boyfriend who was in the bathroom. He nodded and departed. After hour 2, I started to get that sinking feeling in my stomach. They weren't returning. My immediate reaction was to borrow someone's phone, call them, plead with them to come get me. But as I was about to approach an elderly couple, something halted me. A lifetime of recollections flashed through my mind. Every degradation, every time they'd ridiculed me, every joke that was actually just meanness disguised as humor. I could almost hear them. Rachel's voice. Bet he's sobbing right now. My mom. He'll sort it out if he's not as dumb as he seems. My dad's feeble objection that didn't actually accomplish anything. So I made a choice. I approached that couple and asked to use their phone, but I didn't contact my family. I called information and got the number for the nearest shelter in Billings, about 50 miles distant. Then I asked if they could possibly give me a lift into town, told them my family had an emergency and had to leave but were sending someone for me later. They hesitated, but I must have appeared innocent enough because they consented. That first evening at the shelter was a wake-up call. I possessed nothing but the clothes I wore, no identification, no money, no contacts. The shelter worker, Marie, permitted me to use their computer to find my cousin's address from the wedding invitation I'd glimpsed. I thought maybe I could reach the wedding, locate my family there, but then I sat gazing at the screen and thought, why? Why pursue people who literally abandoned me at a gas station for amusement? Instead, I established a new email address. I researched resources for people who needed emergency ID replacement. I searched jobs that pay cash. I formulated a plan. 2 days later, I was bussing tables at this small cafe called Morning Light. The owner, Jackson, was this 50-something guy with salt and pepper beard and more energy than you'd expect. I'd wandered in, asked if they needed help, explained my wallet was stolen but I needed work. He evaluated me and said, "Busboy left yesterday. You steal from me, you're finished. Start now." That's the thing about rock bottom. You can only ascend from there. For a week I worked doubles, slept at the shelter, wore donated clothes. Marie assisted me in starting the process of obtaining a replacement ID by contacting vital records in my home state. I activated a basic prepaid phone from Target with the initial cash I earned. 7 days after they abandoned me, my phone rang. Unidentified number. I answered. It was my mother, voice trembling. Where was I? Was I okay? They'd been searching everywhere. It was just supposed to be a joke. They waited down the road for 20 minutes, returned and couldn't find me. I listened to her panic, her false worry. In the background, I could hear my mom saying to tell me to stop being dramatic and get to Cousin Emily's. I heard Rachel laughing. "Jason, are you there? Respond. We've been so concerned." That sinking feeling in my stomach was gone, replaced with clarity. "You wanted to discover if I could manage on my own," I said, my voice steadier than ever when speaking to her. "So watch me." I disconnected, blocked the number. Then I blocked every family number I could recall for good measure. I visited the T-Mobile store the following day and completely changed my number. 27 missed calls before I changed that number. I imagined them becoming increasingly angry when they realized their target wasn't returning to be targeted. A month later, I had my own studio apartment above a bookstore. It was tiny and smelled like old paper continuously, but it was mine. I advanced to waiter at Morning Light, and Jackson was teaching me how to properly operate the espresso machine without scalding myself. Occasionally, I'd review my old email, the one my family knew. Messages accumulated from Mom. "Please return, we're sorry." From Diane. "This childish behavior needs to end now." From Rachel. "Dude, it was just a joke, quit being such a—" I never replied, not once. That's the thing about liberation. Once you've experienced it, there's no returning to the prison. Look, I won't claim it was simple. Some nights I'd browse through Facebook, see images of people with functional families who genuinely cared for each other, and I'd experience this emptiness that no amount of therapy could satisfy. I endured nights where the isolation felt like it would consume me entirely. Holidays were the hardest. But every morning I'd awaken in my crappy little apartment that smelled like paperbacks, go to my table bussing job where nobody called me worthless, and construct my life one building block at a time. 3 months after they left me at that gas station, I checked my email one final time. There was a new message from my mom. "Your grandfather is asking about you. Please just inform us you're alive." I closed the email, deleted the account, tossed my old SIM card in the garbage behind Morning Light. That evening, Jackson showed me how to prepare his renowned blueberry pancakes, said I had natural talent for cooking. It was the first sincere compliment I could remember receiving in years. I never reminisced. Update 1. 5 years after being deserted at that Montana gas station, I found myself staring at a familiar face on my Twitter feed, not because I was monitoring my family's profiles, okay, maybe I was, but because Rachel had just been mentioned in a local news article back home. She'd received a DWI, crashed her car into a storefront. Nobody injured except the mannequins. The newspaper had used her college graduation photo. She appeared so youthful, so arrogant, nothing like the disheveled mugshot underneath. That's the thing about karma. It proceeds at its own tempo, but it never forgets a destination. By then, I'd constructed something resembling a life in Montana. My shabby studio above the bookstore had eventually been exchanged for a one-bedroom with actual sunlight. I'd progressed from busboy to waiter to shift manager at Morning Light. Jackson still operated the place with a firm hand and a coffee-stained glove, but he'd begun treating me less like a charity case and more like, I don't know, a surrogate son or something. My first major purchase when I had genuine savings was a reliable laptop. Nothing extravagant, just sufficient to take online classes through the community college. Hospitality management, basic accounting, the stuff Diane always said was, for people who can't handle real careers. I'd dedicate my mornings at Morning Light, afternoons studying, evenings back at work. Repeat daily. Look, I won't pretend I wasn't still damaged from what happened. Trust issues? More like trust trial periods that I could terminate anytime someone got too close. I'd made precisely 2 friends in 5 years. My neighbor Liv, who taught yoga and sometimes brought me homemade kombucha that tasted like fermented lawn clippings, and Jackson, if he counted as a friend and not an employer. That transformed when Mia started visiting Morning Light every Monday and Wednesday like clockwork. Always ordered identical breakfast. Veggie wrap, no onions, extra chai. Always occupied the window seat with a laptop. Coding, I later discovered. She had this habit of completely focusing while working. Headphones on, coffee untouched for extended periods. I started timing her once. Record was 9 minutes, 12 seconds before she realized her chai had gone cold. 3 months of me bringing her fresh chai before she actually focused on me. I mean, truly noticed me. Her eyes performed this thing where they crinkled slightly, and she mentioned my name tag was crooked. It wasn't, but it became our peculiar inside joke. I'd wear my name tag progressively more askew every Monday and Wednesday. Jason, 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 she'd straighten it. I'd act surprised. Lamest flirtation in human history, but it succeeded. Our first date wasn't even intended as a date. Her coding partner canceled unexpectedly. She had tickets for this indie film festival that was impossible to get into, and I happened to be wiping down tables when she received the cancellation text. Suddenly, I was sitting beside her at Cinemark, both of us awkwardly recognizing this resembled exactly a date. 6 months later, she moved into my apartment. A year after that, we secured a slightly larger place together. Nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom with a bathroom where the shower maintained consistent pressure and neighbors who didn't practice yoga chants at 5 a.m. Simultaneously, I maintained awareness of my family through anonymous accounts. Not proud of it, but there it is. Mom's bakery started struggling after the Panera opened on the main street. Observed her complaining about it on community Facebook pages, posts becoming increasingly desperate and bitter. Dad's social media evolved into this strange monument to family, constant throwback pictures of us all grinning, posts about cherishing his children, plural, which was rich. He'd tag Rachel but never referenced me, like I'd been deleted. Rachel bounced between jobs, lots of vague posting about negative people and new beginnings, the classic social media smokescreen of someone whose existence is spiraling downward. 3 years in, Jackson took me aside during close and informed me he was considering launching a second location of Morning Light in the University District, asked if I'd be interested in managing it. Not owning, managing. Crucial distinction. I didn't sleep that night, kept considering it was some type of examination or prank. People like me didn't receive opportunities like that. Diane had ensured I comprehended that much. That's the thing about toxic beliefs. They remain in your system long after you've escaped the poison. But I agreed because Mia, half-conscious beside me, murmured that I'd be foolish not to. Because Liv, through a cloud of incense when I mentioned it, said, "Obviously you basically managed the original place already." Because Jackson wasn't Diane, wasn't my family, and had never once made me feel like I was insignificant. Morning Light Campus launched 6 months later. Compact than the original, different menu, my menu. I worked 80-hour weeks that initial year, shed 15 pounds I couldn't sacrifice, argued with Mia about never being present, discovered passive-aggressive sticky notes on the refrigerator more than once. But it functioned. People visited, people returned. The food was excellent. The atmosphere was pleasant. We weren't becoming wealthy, but we were surviving. 4 years after being abandoned, I earned enough to assist Mia with her student loans. Not entirely, those things are astronomical, but enough to reduce the burden. She wept when I displayed the payment confirmation. Not television crying with flawless mascara, proper crying, genuine red-faced hiccuping crying. I'd never felt more like an authentic person than during that moment. Then my grandfather died. I learned through Facebook. Dad posted this extended dramatic tribute with countless heart emojis. Grandpa Joe had been the sole family member who ever confronted Diane, the only one who appeared to recognize me. He used to conceal $20 bills in my jacket pockets when no one was observing, tell me to save it for when I needed it. I assumed he meant university. Turns out it was more literal than that. I contemplated attending the funeral, even investigated flights. Mia stated she'd accompany me, support me through the entire awful reunion. Liv offered her eco-friendly hybrid if I preferred driving instead. Jackson just shrugged and said, "Dead folks don't care if you're present or absent, so do whatever grants you peace." I didn't attend. Instead, I delivered flowers. Generic sympathy arrangement. Signed the card, Jason. No return address, no message. Just my name. The explosion on social media was immediate. Mom posting about signals and connecting from the great beyond. Rachel creating cryptic comments about wayward sons. Dad saying nothing publicly, but I could envision the hurricane behind closed doors. A week later, I received a friend request from a profile I didn't recognize. Some arbitrary name, no posts, no friends. I nearly ignored it until I viewed the message. "Jay, it's Aunt Sarah. Your mom shared your old email, but it bounced. Are you all right? We've been concerned. Your mom has been inquiring about you." I blocked the account. That night I experienced my first anxiety attack in 2 years, sitting on our bathroom floor at 3 a.m., trying not to disturb Mia, feeling like my chest was imploding, imagining Diane hunting me down, appearing at morning light, destroying everything I'd created. Mia discovered me there an hour later, didn't interrogate, just remained with me, her arm around mine. When I could finally inhale properly, she expressed the simplest thought: they can't seize anything from you that you don't surrender. The following morning, I contacted a lawyer, received advice on restraining orders just in case, strengthened privacy settings on everything, requested Jackson to alert staff not to distribute information about me to anyone. Practical measures. Control what you can control. 5 years to the day after being abandoned, I married Mia. Modest ceremony at a local garden. Liv was my witness. Jackson prepared the cake and wept throughout the entire event, coffee stains on his wrinkled shirt. Mia's small, boisterous family embraced me instantly, her mom sharing mom jokes that somehow didn't trigger me, her dad embracing me without activating warning signals in my brain. That's the thing about family. Occasionally it discovers you when you've ceased searching. A week after the wedding, scanning through my secondary account late evening, I noticed it. A post from Diane on a neighborhood page seeking information regarding my son Jason, last known location Billings, Montana, family emergency. There was no emergency. I understood that much. What I didn't comprehend was why, after 5 years of silence, they were suddenly pursuing me. So I investigated deeper, established another fake account, joined the community groups from my hometown, assembled it fragment by fragment. The bakery had closed. Their house was under foreclosure. Dad had medical issues he was vague posting about. Rachel had returned home following her second DWI. They weren't searching for me because they missed me. They were searching for me because they required something. And you know what? For the first time in 5 years, I smiled when I considered them. Not because I was pleased about their hardship, but because I recognized something significant. I didn't care anymore. I shut the laptop, crawled into bed next to my sleeping wife, and reached a decision. I would continue observing from afar, not out of hatred, not out of affection, but because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't what you accomplish. It's what you construct while they're occupied destroying themselves. Finally, update. It commenced with a Facebook notification. 15 years after being abandoned at that Montana gas station, my carefully arranged existence experienced a disruption. Someone had viewed my profile 36 times in 1 week. Not uncommon for Facebook. Stalkers behave strangely like that frequently. What was unusual was the name, Rachel Louise, my sister. That's the thing about the past. It's tolerant. It'll wait in the shadows for years before it attacks. By then, my life resembled nothing like that first year in Billings. Mia had established her own web development company, worked remotely so she could be present with our children more. We had 2, Noah, 6, and Emma, 3. The apartment above the bookstore had transformed into a modest 3-bedroom outside the city limits. Nothing extravagant, but with a garden where the children could explore, and I could cultivate herbs that consistently thrived. Morning Light had extended to 3 locations, still not some massive chain or anything, but adequate that I didn't have to serve tables anymore, except when someone called in sick. Jackson had fully retired 2 years earlier, though he still materialized unexpectedly to critique the way we brewed his coffee recipes. I'd established peace with my past, or believed I had. I still monitored the family distantly, but the constant checking had diminished to perhaps once every few months. Last I understood, Diane and Victor had relocated to a retirement community after selling the smaller house. Rachel had divorced, then cohabitated with someone new. They'd all seemingly progressed with their lives as I had with mine. The Facebook situation disturbed me, though. 15 years of silence and suddenly this? I mentioned it to Mia as we were performing our regular Sunday evening routine, organizing groceries while partially attentive to whatever podcast we were currently behind on. She paused, a carton of eggs in her hands, and asked if I was all right. I nodded because what else could I convey? That I was abruptly a 19-year-old again, stranded at a gas station? That I could hear Diane's voice in my thoughts, calling me useless? 3 days later, I was at Morning Light campus, the original second location, assisting with training because our new barista had accidentally used decaf for every espresso again, when Tara at the counter called back that there was some family requesting me. My initial thought was Mia's parents, who occasionally surprised us when they were visiting the area. I proceeded to the front, mental processes already transitioning to how to persuade them to join us for dinner. It wasn't Mia's family. Diane appeared older, grayer, her formerly commanding presence somehow diminished. Victor's face displayed that strained expression that results from years of stress, his formerly brown hair now completely white. And Rachel. Rachel resembled Diane at 40. Same posture, same method of commanding attention. There was a man with them I didn't recognize, young, perhaps early 30s, lingering behind as if uncertain he belonged in this scene. Nobody communicated. The lunch crowd noise seemed to fade until all I could detect was my own pulse pounding in my ears. Diane spoke first, said my name like a question. I nodded because my voice had evidently gone on holiday. Look, I'd envisioned this moment 1,000 various ways over 15 years. In some versions, I berated them spectacularly. In others, I was composed and detached, unaffected by their presence. In a few embarrassing late-night scenarios, we even experienced tearful reconciliations. Reality is consistently messier than imagination. I indicated an unoccupied table in the corner, instructed Tara to bring waters, seated across from the people who had formerly been my family, and waited. They'd located me through that business journal, Northwest Success Stories, 10 local entrepreneurs. It wasn't even a major feature, just a sidebar with a photograph of me in front of Morning Light original location, but apparently one of Dad's colleagues from work had relocated to Montana, observed it, and forwarded it to him with a, "Isn't this your son?" attached. 107 missed calls. That's how many they'd placed to my old number over the years before it was disconnected. Mom had maintained count. She referenced this as if it was supposed to signify something. They spoke simultaneously. Mom about how distressed they'd been, Diane about how I'd misconstrued what happened that day, Rachel awkwardly attempting to behave like we were old friends catching up. The young man, Rachel's partner Ethan, it emerged, just watched me with interested eyes. I allowed them to speak, observed them craft their interpretation of reality where they weren't the antagonists, noticed how Diane kept surveying the cafe, mentally calculating what it might be worth, saw how Dad's hand quivered slightly when he reached for his water, detected Rachel's rehearsed charm slipping whenever she believed I wasn't looking directly at her. Finally, when they exhausted their momentum, I asked the sole question that mattered. Why now? That's when the actual story emerged in pieces between uncomfortable silences. Diane had medical expenses, cancer treatments, no insurance. The retirement community was threatening eviction. Rachel's tech startup, something ambiguous involving apps, had collapsed dramatically. Dad needed specialized medication he couldn't afford. They weren't present for reconciliation. They were present for financial assistance. I should have been furious, should have ejected them. Instead, I experienced something unexpected: compassion. They appeared so small, so desperate. These giants who had once dominated my entire world were just imperfect, broken individuals. I invited them to dinner at my house that evening, said I needed to contemplate, to consult with Mia. They agreed enthusiastically, Diane already halfway to regarding it a concluded arrangement. That afternoon was otherworldly. I collected Noah from his soccer practice, helped Emma with her preschool art project, all while messaging Mia updates about who was joining for dinner. She proposed taking the kids to her friends. I declined. I wanted them present, wanted my family to encounter my family. Dinner was lasagna, my specialty that wasn't truly exceptional, just a recipe from an old Italian cookbook that I modified through the years. Noah arranged the table without prompting, carefully positioning napkins until Mia quietly adjusted them. Emma insisted on wearing her princess costume because it was Tuesday, and evidently Tuesday was now Princess Day. When the doorbell chimed, I almost dropped the salad I was transporting to the table. Mia squeezed my shoulder as she passed, whispered that she supported me regardless. The kids looked up inquisitively, sensing something significant was occurring. That's the thing about moments you've dreaded. When they finally materialize, they're simultaneously worse and better than you anticipated. Introductions were uncomfortable. Diane kept addressing Mia as Maya despite corrections. Victor couldn't stop staring whenever he glimpsed the kids, which was unsettling Emma. Rachel and Ethan were the least terrible, making genuine attempts at normal conversation, though Rachel kept inserting hints about family assisting family. After dinner, Mia accompanied the kids upstairs for baths and bedtime, providing me a glance that clearly indicated Text if you need rescue. Then it was solely me and them, sitting in a living room that suddenly felt excessively confined. Diane initiated the proposal. How family remains united, how she'd always understood I'd achieve something meaningful, lie, how they merely required minor assistance to regain stability. $25,000, just a loan, naturally. I permitted her to conclude, then I inquired if she recalled what she declared on my high school graduation. She appeared blank. I reminded her, good thing community college accepts anyone, since that's all you'll ever accomplish. I asked Dad if he remembered what he did when Diane shredded my acceptance letter to State University. Nothing. He'd done nothing. I asked Rachel if she remembered informing my first boyfriend I was probably going to be gay anyway when he visited the house searching for me. They squirmed, presented excuses. Diane started to develop that dangerous tone to her voice that formerly made me cower. But here's the reality. I wasn't cowering anymore. I was 15 years and infinite distance from that individual. I went to my office, returned with an envelope, handed it to Diane. Inside was a check for $85.25. Diane examined it, confused, asked what the hell this was meant to be. I informed her in 2010 that was precisely what a Greyhound ticket from Billings to our hometown would have cost, the exact amount it would have required for me to return home from where they abandoned me. The silence was complete. Then Diane began shouting, labeled me ungrateful, selfish, declared I'd always been a disappointment, the greatest hits compilation of my childhood performing one final time. I didn't debate, didn't shout in response, simply stood and announced it was time for them to depart. Dad attempted a different approach. Tears, manipulation. How could I behave this way toward family? Rachel became cold. The facade of friendly sister totally vanished. Ethan just appeared mortified for all of them. When they ultimately left, Diane crumpling the check and discarding it on our front step, I secured the door and leaned against it, legs suddenly unsteady. Mia descended the stairs, asked if I was all right. I nodded, not trusting my voice. We tidied the dinner dishes in silence, verified the sleeping kids, prepared for bed like it was any ordinary night. As I was activating the home security, I accessed the front door camera on my phone. They remained in the driveway, disputing. Diane gesturing wildly, Dad crying, Rachel regarding our house with an expression I recognized too well. Jealousy, mixed with resentment. Eventually they entered their rental car and drove away. I've never encountered or communicated with them since, don't anticipate doing so. The chapter is concluded. That's the thing about vengeance. The finest kind isn't something you perform, it's something you experience. Every joyful moment with my children, every private joke with Mia, every peaceful Sunday morning with nothing to fear, every single ordinary day in a life established on my conditions. I never returned home. I accomplished something superior. I built one.